Hey everybody, welcome to Young, Dumb, and Sober. I'm Allie, and this is Not Able.
I'm Petra.
That's true, she is Petra. This is my girlfriend. If you guys don't already know, I've mentioned her in several videos because I find it really amazing that somebody chooses to be with me. She is our very special guest today. Abel and I have been doing more individual videos as well as bringing other people into the videos so we can diversify our content. We come to you guys with new stuff. If you want to stay updated, be notified whenever we post new content, you can pause this video right now, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell. That means that you'll get a notification every time we post something. We'll follow us on Instagram. You can find all the links below. My Instagram, for Abel's Instagram, for the Young Dumb Sober Instagram, and for Petra's Instagram. But don't slide into her DMs. We'll get emotionally unsober very quickly.
Wow.
Starting the video off with a threat to the viewers. Sounds good. The reason we decided to make this video is because clearly I am sober. I mean, that doesn't have to be very obvious. It should be, just so you guys know I'm still sober. It's been a fucking minute, my friends.
965.
Been sober for 965 days. Petra has not. She's not sober. Thought that it might be helpful to create a video about what it's like to be somebody who's sober and dating somebody who drinks, and for somebody who drinks to be dating somebody who is sober or in recovery. When we first started talking in the research phase of each other and what it would be like to date somebody on the other side, there wasn't a lot of resources.
No.
So hopefully if anybody else is in this type of situation, especially queer or LGBT couples, you guys can get something out of it. If not, sorry, bye. What we're going to do is run through the history of us, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Let's begin.
Prior to meeting you, the only other sober person I knew was another girl who I had gone on a few dates with. She was the first sober person that I had gone on a date with or really hung out with and had longer conversations with. I was a little unsure, a little skeptical, a little nervous to go on a date with someone that was sober. And hanging out with her, I think, kind of primed me for meeting you. I wasn't as concerned or nervous by it. It didn't even really cross my mind to question it. It's just a lifestyle difference.
I also think that it is very relevant that you're not a big drinker. You drink very socially, and as far as I know, don't get blackout wasted and aren't a huge partier. It's very kind of a casual relationship you have with alcohol. The people I had dated recently prior to Petra were either working a program of recovery or were sober or were trying to get sober. That was what I was used to. And meeting Petra was the first time that I had to consider, can I be with somebody who drinks and has a social life that involves alcohol? I was also really worried that having alcohol around me would either A, make me feel jealous, like I couldn't drink it and my partner could, or B, that it would plant its way back into my brain and make me want to drink again. I said to her that if she wasn't my neighbor and I didn't feel awkward rejecting her, I probably wouldn't have met her, partially because of the fact that I saw that you were drinking in so many of your pictures. But I couldn't just blow off my fucking neighbor because she knows where I live. And I had seen her and was very attracted to her, so I was like, I have to, do this. I drank like 5 energy drinks the day that we met.
Oh my god.
We hit it off, started dating really quickly. We hung out like a couple of days later, and then a couple of days later after that. I would say that we moved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Cliche lesbian pace relationship. We set the record for lesbianism because we moved in together before we even started dating. Like, we already lived in the same fucking house. How did that time period go for you? Between when we first met, when we first started dating, and then up until we had like a formal discussion about my sobriety and your drinking?
That was challenging because it was something that I felt was a conversation that should be initiated by you. I was nervous to bring up the conversation, say something wrong, ask you questions that made you uncomfortable. I was kind of avoiding the conversation. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know how to bring it up. I didn't know how you would react, whether you'd be okay with me even questioning you about it.
Yeah. Like, I was having all of this inner turmoil about the drinking situation. There would be times where she was going out and drinking and I didn't feel comfortable like asking her about it because I didn't want to come off as like possessive or controlling to make her feel like she couldn't live her life the way that she wanted to because she was with somebody who was sober. I did not know how to, or I did know how to, I didn't want to have that conversation with her. Just wanted to avoid it because it felt uncomfortable for me.
I mean, I knew that it was a thing, but I was almost like trying to pretend like it wasn't until you brought it up. That was obviously the wrong way to go about it. I think I could have maybe altered my behavior more than I did. That is probably what triggered us having a more serious conversation.
Yeah. I was being told by my therapist every week, have this conversation. I just kept being like, no. I had a responsibility to say something. I was worried that he would be defensive, that if I said something, I would like blow the whole thing. When we discussed it, Petra was very, very understanding about it, very freeing, and I felt like I was able to open up to her. It was nice. Definitely helped us become more intimate with one another.
Yeah. Feeling a sense of relief. I finally had an insight and a lot of answers to questions that I was too afraid to ask. Made me feel more comfortable as a whole.
Right.
But it wasn't until we had that fight that I really actually made a conscious effort to alter my behavior.
Part of it is trial and error too. Yeah. Just having a conversation about something is not the same as dealing with it hands-on. Even after the conversation, despite the fact that we were more communicative and more open about it, there was still a couple of instances that happened that caused tension between us. One of the things that we decided in the initial conversation was disclosure about when she was drinking if we had plans to hang out later that day. I'm going to want to know what state of mind I'm in right now to be around somebody who's been under the influence or who might smell like alcohol. Yeah. Really like shifted the relationship a lot. So here's the tea. We got into a fight. You made plans for me, you, and your friend from work to have dinner at your place. Day of, Petra sent me like throwaway text. Okay, so here's the plan. Like, we do dinner at 7. We're gonna go to the bar at 10. I kind of looked at it like, okay, so you're inviting me for half of the night? I guess I kind of felt like left out maybe a little bit, like a little kid like tagging along. And I felt like a burden. You didn't make me feel that way. Those were my own feelings. I still decided to go and meet them upstairs. So, but I knock on the door and nobody answers. I text Petra, hey babe, like where are you? And she's like, oh, I'm at the liquor store. Because she had just texted me and said, hurry up. There's nothing wrong with her going to the liquor store. There's nothing wrong with that she planned on drinking. It was just kind of like insult on top of injury.
Yeah, I was unsure of what it was that caused you being upset. I think in my head it was purely the fact that I was at a liquor store when you came over and I wasn't there. It didn't even cross my mind, this conversation about like what the plans were, how we were planning to go to the bar, which now, of course, like after that discussion, I understand that aspect of it.
I did not want to have to deal with every single weekend being shifted around to comply with her drinking plans. I did feel comfortable enough to say, like, I'm having my doubts and I'm nervous and I'm fearful. More mindful of your own actions. I took accountability for like changing what you thought was that you needed to change because you wanted to change it. My sobriety shouldn't be a burden to me, and it shouldn't be a burden to her.
I think the biggest thing has just been, like you said, honesty and disclosure.
Yeah.
If there are events that I know I have planned where people are going to be drinking, of course, offering you the opportunity to come if you're in a good place and you feel like you want to be there, understanding that most likely this will be something I'm attending alone and making sure that I'm also spending time with you separately in a different capacity.
So we're both just going to give our own little tips for how somebody in our particular situation might manage this kind of dynamic. Tip number 1 is disclosing about your sobriety as early as possible. Although that might be scary or make you worried that you might scare the person away, I think it's a calculated risk, because if it does scare them away, then they weren't the one to start with. Get it out of the way really early and tell them in as much detail as you feel comfortable at first. Best to have a foundation from the start and letting them know what level of importance your sobriety takes in your life. For some people, it's more of like a background thing, and some people are just sober because they don't like drinking. Other people, such as myself, are sober because we have to be sober. I cannot drink or use drugs because bad shit happens in my life and I destroy everything around me. So it's not something that I take lightly.
My biggest tip for someone in a situation like myself where you don't have a lot of interaction with people in sobriety is education. I was very ignorant to a lot of things, which in turn led to me being unsure of myself and what I was doing, and unsure of bringing up conversations that I just didn't know how to address. Education for me was the biggest thing in terms of just reading articles online, getting an understanding of what life in sobriety is like by trying to gain as much knowledge as I could just through articles or people talking about it online. I went to a handful of Al-Anon meetings, which I didn't even know was a thing until I met you. That was extremely helpful for me as well. Exposing myself to a life of sobriety and gaining a better understanding changed things for me dramatically. It helped me be more understanding, more sympathetic, more delicate in situations that maybe I didn't realize were delicate situations.
Be true to yourself and your level of comfortability with being around alcohol. If your partner drinks, assess your comfortability with their drinking and with how they choose to have alcohol in their life. You're going to be put in situations where you might be around it. You will have the opportunity to prepare yourself for it and do whatever you need to do and use whatever tools you need to use to go into it in a good way, like spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. This is the healthiest relationship I've had thus far. It's with somebody who does happen to drink versus all of the unhealthy relationships I've had with people who were sober. So it really isn't a matter of whether somebody is sober or not. It's a matter of like who they are really as a person and how they care for you and how they care for themselves and how they choose to show up in the world and how they choose to show up in your relationship. Definitely don't have it all figured out. I don't think that anybody can ever have anything all figured out when it comes to romantic relationships or something as delicate as sobriety or lifestyle differences, anything like that. However, we have figured out a way that works for us. Honesty, open communication, knowing that we're on the same team. The end goal is for us to have a sustainable, healthy, happy relationship. We're not going to let alcohol, or, well, you don't do drugs, or do you? No. Alcohol and its presence in her life and its lack of presence in my life dictate the success or failure of our relationship.
Thy dreams come true.